This is Mike Sheridan with Sheridan Pest Control, and I'm sitting here with Christine Sbardella,
Hello.
518Realty.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
We had you in our office this week, and you were kind of going through some different scenarios with us, kind of educating our agents on what we need to look for, when we need to call you, and all that kind of stuff. So one of the things that was brought up was sellers having pre-home inspections. So sometimes that is a possibility. Sellers are having pre-inspections. It's very difficult and stressful for a seller to have an inspection, somebody picking apart their house, but the home inspector goes in, they see evidence of, say, wood destroying organisms, say you had carpenter ants or something like that, and sometimes it gets kind of pushed under the rug. Like somebody, if you have a home inspection, they're like, oh yeah, the furnace isn't running right, we get an HVAC guy in. It's just common sense. It should be common sense as, hey, when you see somebody chewing at your house, you might want to call somebody with a little bit more knowledge. So when you have a home inspector that says, hey, Mike, I want to just give you a call, or a client that says, hey, I just wanted to let you know, we had a home inspection. We did have evidence of, wood-boring organisms, mice, whatever the case may be. What are some things that you're going to go in and with that homeowner, seller, or buyer, because you do both, what are some of the things that you're going to look for and say, hey, okay, we know that there's an issue. Let's find out what the scope of this issue is. What are the things? Walk us through how that goes.
Well, first I want to say that the seller and the buyer, it's a great idea to have the extra pest inspection. It's not as expensive as the home inspection. And for the seller, it's just peace of mind. If they have a pest inspection before they put it on the market, they're going to probably be aware of what's going to come up in the buyer's home inspection, which is good for peace of mind. It's not. It's less stress hitting you, unknowingly. And then when you're the seller, of course, if something comes up in the home inspection, you want to follow up and have a pest inspection. But things that we're looking for, it's going to be different. Rodent nests, droppings, things like that. That's one thing. Also, for things like termites and carpenter ants, they do similar damage, but it is different, and you need a trained eye because it's very different treatments. They cost different things. The price of each service is different, and it's just very good to know exactly what's going on. That's all. So, pest inspections for the buyer, great idea. Pest inspection for the seller. It's an idea. It doesn't happen that much, but it should.
Right, so, exactly. I mean, you're having that inspection done, which we know home inspections are far more expensive than just having a pest inspection. Yeah. So it's really worth that money. If you're going to spend, the amount that you're going to pay for that home inspection, it's certainly worth to make a full, complete circle of, we have a well-rounded report of what this house is. Now, as buyer's agents, I always like to say, hey, we're walking outside, we saw traps, we saw baits, things like that, and then go to that listing agent or, to go to the seller and be like, what do you have for documentation of who's treating this? When was the last time it was treated? Is it actively even being treated? Yeah. There might be a problem coming with termites or something like that, and you can see the old stations out there, but you're like, how old are those stations? Yeah. Do they have anything in them?
That happens a lot. The termite stations, that happens a lot. There used to be programs sold where people would put one station on each side of their house. That doesn't really do much except
not for a bug this big.
Yeah, for that small area, it would monitor, but those things cause red flags. But yes, documentation, paperwork, etc. from reputable pest companies. It's very important. You file it away, you keep it, and then you also keep the treatments and the pest control current, and then you're going to have less problems buying and selling houses because everything's current. And you can say, oh, I see termite stations, and then the seller could say, oh yeah, we have Mike at Sheridan Pest, and he checks them every 3 months, and we haven't had termites in 7 years.
Right. So that's not something that should alarm someone.
No.
It should almost be like, hey. Okay, so they identified a problem, and now they're taking care of that problem.
Perfect.
Right?
It is an issue. It has to be identified. It has to be addressed. It is not the end of the world.
Right.
It depends on the scope of the damage. So.
Right. And then we talked about scope of damage, meaning if you do find some areas of your home that have been kind of invaded by those pests, that it's not doom and gloom necessarily. Right. It's not like they're chewing on the main vein that holds your whole entire house together and it's going to collapse in any minute. That's really, people go from 0 to 100 unnecessarily.
Yes.
So that's another reason why to contact a professional like yourself to say, hey, no, there's things that you can do to, and don't try not to take to the internet because, like we talked about,
Yeah.
Florida has different pests
Yeah.
than we have up here, and even different areas as specialized as, you know, each county. Sometimes, you know, you'll find Guilderland will have an issue, but then, you know, over in Schenectady County, you don't have as much, or whatever the case may be. So you know the areas where the issue, like I sometimes will ask my home inspectors, hey, is radon prevalent in this area? No, you're in the middle of Colony. The chances of you having radon is unlikely, you know, because sometimes people don't want to spend the extra $100, $125 for that. Right? The same thing goes for pests. No different. You know the areas where they're going to be most likely. And you even know probably just from looking at the property, like you said, I go into a property, I'm going to assess what's around there.
Yeah.
Is there wood near a foundation or something like that that's going
That's
to
a good point.
trees, you know, does it get a lot of light? Is that going to trap moisture? Those are all things that are going to breed some critters your way.
Assessments, inspections, putting the real estate agent, the seller's agent, the buyer's agent, the buyer, the seller, the pest guy, home inspector, putting everybody's brains together is a really solid way to do things. Then you don't want things to come at you blind.
Right.
You just paperwork, assessments, inspections. It's a good way to handle.
And
things.
we're all in there for a common goal to make sure that we bring a buyer and a seller together. The buyer, you know, purchases a home. The seller wants to sell their home, and everybody goes on their way, and they feel they have a peace of mind that they have a quality product that they're buying and that it's safe. And if there are problems, that you know that you're maintaining them.
Yes, and again, something that you were kind of alluding to earlier that I'll touch on really quickly is that the problems that we find, it's not the end of the world.
No.
Now, sometimes it can be extensive.
Sure.
Often, it's not nearly worth the stress that people will bring to the situation.
Right.
You know, I had 2 weeks ago, I had people who wanted to bail on buying a house because of one mouse, and they were serious. Now, we all got together and fixed that deal, both real estate agents and I. It's not that serious. You don't walk away from, you know, $500,000 houses because of one mouse, but sometimes you have to bring people back down to earth about stuff.
Right, we all need that little check every once in a while.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for coming in. I really appreciate all the information that you provide to us.
Well, thank you for having me. And again, Mike Sheridan Pest Control, Christine Sbardella, 518Realty, and Steve wasn't invited to this one. Sorry, Steve.
It could only be 7 minutes long.
All right, thank you. See you, everybody.
Bye.